It's not only what players accomplish in their careers in the National Football League, it's how they do it and the impact that they have. In this edition of Defending the Kingdom, Deuces are wild because we put the number 2 right at the top of the stack. Dustin Colquitt will be featured, and we'll update you on the OTAs. Defending the Kingdom, as always, is brought to you by Ticketmaster.
Holthus keeps it on an RPO at the 5, gets a lead block, he goes into the end zone near side, touchdown, Kansas City!
Hi everyone, I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. Yes, Deuces are wild. We are bringing out the deuce in the deuce because of Dustin Colquitt. We're going to talk to him in just a minute. What a conversation with him. He gets right to the soul. But an amazing human being, an incredible career. 17 years in the NFL, 15 with the Chiefs, 2-time Pro Bowler. But it's more than that with him. There's such a part of the fabric of the Chiefs kingdom that Dustin Colquitt will always represent.
Yeah, it's hard to put into words, really. So I mentioned this with Dustin on the interview, but he played in 238 regular season games for the Chiefs, easily the most of any player in franchise history. The Chiefs have played exactly 1,000 regular season games in team history, meaning he played in 24% of the games in Chiefs history. Think about that. And for me growing up, I mean, as a young kid, he was just on the team. He was one of the best punters in the league. And then I'm in my 30s now, and he was still on the team through Super Bowl 54. Think about that. So he bridged multiple generations of Chiefs football. In so many ways, he helped usher in the era that we're in now, because we always talk about it. Even though guys like Tamba Hali or Derek Johnson, Justin Houston, Eric Berry, all those guys that were on those teams earlier, I think of the great offensive linemen in the early 2000s. Yeah, they didn't necessarily win a Super Bowl, but they helped kind of establish the culture that we have now, kind of melded perfectly when Coach Reid got here. And thankfully, Dustin was on the team in 2019. His final game as a Chief was Super Bowl 54. And you'll hear more about what that meant to him. But just such a cool guy, an amazing guy. I could talk forever about him, what he does off the field as well. But just so cool to have him back in the facility here today.
Yeah, I was talking with Joe Helder, who you and I both work with in our 65 TPT crew. And Joe had a really good comment about it because I was just, I've kind of absorbed this day with Dustin, and looking at Dustin many times is like looking at a reflection in the pond. But he got the payoff. He went through everything, 2-2-14 seasons, 5 head coaches, 4 general managers, and the fact that he got the payoff. And I was trying to think who went through all of that crud and basically got the payoff, and I'm not sure I could come up with anybody else other than Dustin.
Like Jamal Charles didn't.
He did not. Derek Johnson did not.
Dante
Tamba
Hall
Hali did not.
Yeah, I mean, lots of guys.
And Alex Smith didn't get. But guys that went through the both 2 and 2-14 seasons saw things bottom out with the worst that can imagine here, but then got the payoff. Dustin got it. And so he becomes a representative, I think, of many fans in the Chiefs kingdom who hung in there during those, thinking just there was hope for a better day, and it came. And so Dustin becomes kind of the poster person, if you will, for that.
And he could have left. I mean, for those of us that are fans, you're with it no matter what. But, I mean, Dustin wasn't from here originally. He's from Tennessee. He could have left if he wanted to, but he realized this place was special. He recognized something in Kansas City and Chiefs Kingdom that he's like, I want to see this thing through. That's something that we talk about a lot. It's kind of hard to find that nowadays. Not everyone's that way, but Dustin wanted to see this thing through, and it's so cool that he did. He didn't just see it through for his career. He saw it through where the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl and won it for the first time in 50 years, and he was a part of that. And I'm sure when he was on the field and confetti was falling, he was thinking about, 2-14 seasons, 4-12 seasons, coaches getting fired, like really difficult times, some of the hardest times in Chiefs history that we all remember that weren't too long ago. And Dustin persevered through all of that. He was a leader, just a total pro through all of that. And you're right, he got the payoff of being on the field in Miami for Super Bowl 54. Pretty cool.
He gets into this in the interview, and you're going to love this interview, but we want to see it through. But so often you don't get to see it through, because even though you may want to see it through, others don't let you see it through.
Yeah.
And he talked about surviving ideologies and head coaches and, their own guy. He talked about that. It's really, really good how he gets into that because we've also experienced that. But the other thing, and Dave Tobe, I had a conversation with Dave Tobe, and we talked about the very thing that you and I talk about in the interview, and almost 100 punts in a season down almost by less than 40%, right? It got down when Pat started playing. Those punts became holds. But how Dustin revolutionized the game. We're going to get into that as well. Prior to Dustin Colquitt, and there was some Australian rules guys, Darren Bennett, I remember the Chargers was one of the first that came from Australia, played Australian rules football and had the funky kick. But it used to be coffin corner kicks. And Dave talked about Brad Maynard, who he had in Chicago, who's a very, very good punter, Pro Bowl punter, all-pro punter. But in those days, you basically wanted to kick it to the coffin corner, kick it out of bounds, but Dustin became really one of the first to specialize in the backwards bounce kick, like the balata ball, like a golf ball bounce to get him inside the 10. We'll get into the stats inside the 10 once we get into the interview. And I found it fascinating that his last punt in front of the team as he broke it down today was inside the 5.
Of course it was, right?
And they all just roared. It was a moment, man.
It seems like obvious, but when you think about a punter, I understand when the punter's on the field, normally it means something has gone wrong. The offense hasn't succeeded. And while that's true, it doesn't mean that the punter can't also be an extension of your winning game plan. And a punt isn't just a punt. They're not all made the same. And something that Dustin always talked about is how he wanted to be like a weapon out there, and he wanted to help the team by flipping the field. It seems obvious every punter should want to do that, but not every punter is that way. And it's a reality that Dustin is one of the greatest punters in NFL history. Not just by longevity, but by when he was out there, he was a weapon for the Chiefs. And we're so fortunate that we had a guy like this around for so long. And again, not just because of the great player that he was, and he was a great player, but just an awesome dude to have in the locker room. And I know this, that when there was difficult times in the locker room and the team wasn't winning and people weren't getting along, to have a player and a guy like that in your locker room is invaluable because he's looking to be an energy giver. He's not an energy taker, and life's all about trying to manage those things, and Dustin's the ultimate energy giver. So you just can't say enough great things about him, the player, the person. He was always so kind to me during my time here. I know, obviously, you guys have quite a history, and just so happy for him to have this day here today.
Yeah, I love it when he talks in the interview. You'll hear it here soon. When he would pin a team back and the defensive guys would point at him.
Yeah.
It just gets me.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Wonderful.
Because it's easy, too, for a punter to feel disconnected. Mm-hmm. And those little things, it makes you feel part of the team, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we see place kickers make walk-off field goals, and they get carried off the field and, water poured on them. But you don't see that from punters much because they don't get to have the walk-off kick. They have the walk-off hold taken for granted. But when a team appreciates Dustin as much as the teams did, especially the Andy Reid teams of Dustin from 13 to 19, And again, the game changed. And I still want the NFL to have punts inside the 10 instead of just inside the 20. All right, we're going to get into the interview, but before we do, let's go around the world.
Yeah, so 5 quick ones today. For Hollywood Brown. How about that?
Yeah, I like it.
Hollywood's going to have a big year this year. Mark my words. Heard from Doug.
1,100 yards?
How about that? That sounds good, right?
You calling that?
Let's do it. Yeah,
all right,
1,100 yards.
That'll get.
What's Rasheed going to do? Rasheed's going to have
him in for like 1,200. There's 23 for Pat.
I'm going to say 1,600 for Rasheed.
Feels like a 5,500 year for Pat then.
Why not?
Sure.
Oh, why not?
55
Let's go for it. And then
yeah.
Xavier can have a bunch too. Anyway, heard from Doug. We've mentioned Doug before. I met him a few years ago at a trivia that I go to on a weekly basis.
I want to go to that sometime.
So we haven't been in a while because, like, our crew has had various things. Like, we always go with Greg Tonge upstairs, but Greg was planning his wedding, and they couldn't make it.
It's such a poor excuse.
I know, it is, but, I'm trying to be a nice guy about the whole thing. Regardless, our trivia crew is kind of falling apart, so maybe if you want to go sometime. I've been trying to
put it back together.
I have no one to go with.
I don't want to go to an empty room or something.
Well, listen, you and I would
stare
go.
at some barista going, "Hey, when's the trivia happening?"
I think we'd have a great
Doesn't
time
happen
regardless.
anymore. Greg's planning a wedding, and Matt's off with Zootopia and
Trivia has to happen again.
Rock and Brew or whatever.
Regardless, Doug was listening to last week's episode when I talked about West Side Local, that restaurant that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
So he recommended a few other places to go over there. I can't believe I'd never heard of this area before. It's weird, like being from Kansas City, and there's a whole area I was exploring and had never heard of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he recommended a few places. So shout out to Doug. Shout out to David. I mentioned David before. He lives in Louisville now, but spent 15 years in Laos. Remember David? We talked about him a while ago. He'll be at the Ravens game this year, so we'll have to say hi. Pretty cool.
Is there an international game in Laos this year?
In Laos, not yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Okay.
I'm sure. Just name a country, and I'm sure it's coming.
Let me look through here. No game in Laos.
It's Chiefs and Bills in Laos.
3 a.m.
We'll do our pregame show.
Hulu.
Alan is in Australia. Speaking of places around the world, he's looking
May well
forward.
have a game.
Get this, yeah, he's looking forward to the first NFL game. It's going to be in Australia in 2026. It's going to be a Rams home game in Australia. I'm not sure of the city. Maybe Sydney, Melbourne. I don't know.
Think one of those two.
Regardless, you and I are just going to see the world here over the next couple
I hope so.
years.
Are we in that game?
Well, the Rams are. We play the Rams on the road. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Breaking news. Defending the kingdom.
Dakota is checking in from Smith Mill, Missouri, a little bit closer. They applied to be a flag runner this year. Good luck to you, Dakota.
Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. It's difficult to do that. You know, I judged that a few years ago. I really respect what they do. Like, you have to be like an elite athlete to do that. So good luck, Dakota. And then lastly, Brian wants to know if this is the year the world will meet the junior team reporter. Because, of course, I am the senior team reporter. Will someone meet the junior team reporter? I don't know. We'll see.
Do we need a junior team reporter?
Just keep the line going.
Sophomore team reporter and freshman team reporter, sure.
Just have a whole little group of them. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see, Brian.
Maybe they were in this group that I'm at, all the Kingdom Defenders. Why we'd have a shirt yet?
It's kind of a...
It's one of the disappointing things. A Kingdom Defender. So here's where I'm going with this. So I emceed the Ambassadors Gala. Last week. It's great. Our ambassadors, that's a whole nother Defending the Kingdom episode sometime. It's just the ambassadors. And talk about what they do, our former players, is pretty cool. But this year's gala benefited the Police Athletic League of Kansas City. It's where KCPD works with youth and developing youth and using sports and different methods to really do some incredible things in our city. Bunch of fun, man. It's a fun night. Here come a bunch of fun dudes after it's over, taking pictures, selfies, woofing it up, and all from like Rockhurst High School, but they've kind of splintered off, and Mizzou guys, K-State, KU, but they're just all Kingdom Defenders.
Okay.
Like, oh man, we just love it. Like, hang on every word. And I thought, these guys need T-shirts to wear. It's
pretty negligent on our part that we have not done any merchandise. We've talked about a lot of things, but not actually done it. I think we need to get T-shirts, and we need to do the global tour where we'll do shows all over the world. Seems like we should do it,
So. Well, we do a lot of things here on Defending the Kingdom. We change, actually, the equator. We move it and put different countries and hemispheres that...
This was like 2 years ago. It keeps you up at night.
Oh, it does. I hate that stuff, like missing that. Like, I'm looking up and looking at the Philippines on my by my ceiling fan.
You'll never forget it, though.
Oh, no.
Like, where they are now.
Oh, yeah. All about the Philippines. And I've studied a lot, right? World War II and all that. Okay. Had friends that have been missionaries in the Philippines. Got it. Anyway, blew that one. One thing we did not blow was getting a chance to have Dustin Colquitt with us on the day that he signs his papers to officially retire from the National Football League. Yes, Deuces are wild. We told you Deuces are wild. Yep, nothing but twos here.
There we go.
The official retirement today of the remarkable Dustin Colquitt. Almost 20 years in the National Football League, 15 glorious years. Well, not always glorious, but glorious ending with us. Your thoughts overall? First of all, it's awesome to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's unbelievable being kind of back in this building. Usually walking in the player side, now walking in the business side. A little different. Love it, though, because like everybody that spends time in this building, you give everything you have every day you can to stay as long as you can. And that was my goal, is don't be a disappointment. Don't be the third-round draft pick that doesn't make it. why didn't we do an offense or defensive player? Like, be a weapon. So being back in this building on the other side of things and to see what you guys have done over the last several years since 2019, when you punch that first ticket and then you say, by the way, we're going to appear often as much as we can.
So you played 238 games in the regular season for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have only played 1,000 regular season games as a franchise. So you played like 24% of the Chiefs franchise games. When I say that, what goes through your mind?
I'm glad I didn't know that while those numbers were because I would have gotten wrapped up in that. My thing was, don't get the kicker fired. Make sure you clean up anything coming back. And I've had some really good snappers here, and Winchester's still here doing his thing. And so it's just one of those things where I want to. And I told you guys, I remember once I left this building, there were several times where I'd pulled out of my driveway, you jump on 150 highway, and you're like, I don't work there anymore. So it's just ingrained. That drive was ingrained into my system.
You couldn't get 2 more punts. Cleveland wouldn't give you 2 more punts because you would have 1,200. You had 1,198 punts. Come on, Cleveland. But more than that, 53,660 yards. But my favorite stat. And I went back and looked at it because your last game with us was a Super Bowl 54. It was so awesome. You changed the National Football League because, and Matt and I have talked about this, the metric for the NFL is punts inside the 20, ooh, that's really good. Dustin Colquitt changed the league because, to me, it became punts inside the 10. You had 76 punts inside the 10 the last 7 years of your career. No one was even close to that. You talk about being the 12th defender. I got chills even bringing this up. Your thoughts about really changing the game and how the punter became a 12th defensive player.
Yeah, I think I watch a lot of film, and I remember back when all the numbers that you're talking about, we were getting DVDs to take home and watch, right? And so you're and what's on those DVDs is you yelling about this ball going inside the 10 or inside the 20 or being fair caught, we don't have to cover that ball and all this stuff. And so as somebody that wanted to be a tech, like Dave Tobe would say, this guy's a technician. He's surgical. He uses words like that. And so I remember after watching some of that game film thinking, man, he's making this punting game excited. I don't want anybody to leave to try to get a beer. I want them to watch this punt. And so when you try to, a lot of people, try to get these fair catch balls, but I remember I tried to extend that 20-yard line, get inside the 20, inside the 10, because you watch film again and you're seeing the defensive guys take the field from the sidelines, and it was almost like the healthiest drug you can be on to see them taking that long run down close to the goal line and pointing back because they know where their field position came from, and just very thankful I was able to do that.
I think we all know, and Chiefs fans know, that you're one of the greatest punters in NFL history. That's obvious. The stats say that, and longevity says that. But you don't get enough credit, in my opinion, for all the holding that you did for all the years that you were here. Because if your name is said when you're holding, that means something went wrong, right? But that didn't happen a whole lot because consistently you were making sure that operation was flowing perfectly. Tell us about that process of being a holder, especially in 2005, you're coming into the league as a rookie, you're holding for field goals, and how you did it for as long as you did.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things because it kept me distracted from the pressure of punting, I think. And so, and I got to work with a lot of good guys. They were always, there's only one snapper in the room, and they always have a very different personality from everybody else. Winchester's that way, anybody that I worked with. But that, our little tandem, just hanging out, hunting or doing, raising kids together, all that, it was just important because if you don't keep it in between 1.25, 1.28, I mean, it's split second stuff. And I always wanted to make sure those guys knew, hey, you got us close enough and we have to come up with points. Because when they're doing their breakdown and say, hey, what do we got to fix? What do we got to do? They should be guaranteed, hey, we got to come up with these points. And I never wanted to get a kicker fired. I always felt man, I hold this guy's job kind of in my hands. And they were all great people and trying to raise families. And I was this is actually more important for me than the punting.
Wow.
Because it is. It's it's a thing. And I don't want to ever look down and be oh, that ball's spinning as it gets kicked. Or I want it to be all right, now it's your time to work. Because all the guys were good that they drafted and brought in off the streets, like Bucker. He didn't make it in Carolina, and so we have a success story of Tobe and Andy and everybody bringing him in and saying like, nah, Chiefs Kingdom's your home. And so you're like, I take that very seriously of we got to keep this guy here for a long time because he's great. And look at him now. Like, he is so good.
I remember Harrison with the winner against Washington in his first game. But Matt, we were discussing this.
Yeah.
The list of kickers you had. Oh my gosh.
Do you know how many kickers you held for?
Oh God, it's got to be. I mean, like, especially from like once Tynes was gone, it was kind of like
There was a bit of a revolving door there for a little while.
Was it like 6
In that span, there
little
was let's see, 5.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was 9 total.
Okay. I remember Vanderjack coming in for a workout and he re-missed that AFC
Oh no!
kick and had a blow up with Prefer, and he's like, I don't think he is going to be here for very long.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
But yeah, and that was what I'm talking about when you go through those guys, and then I got to learn from like John Carney. I remember, he was like the GOAT, just played forever, and I wasn't used to it. Like, you go in, and the holder usually puts the spot down. The kicker walks off that spot. And I remember the first time I'm holding for him, I literally like, put the spot down. I look back, look down, and it's gone. He had like kicked it off, and he's like, I do the spot.
It's okay.
And I was like, cool.
Got it. You've been in the league 20 years?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, got it. So I had a unique opportunity to like learn too from like some older guys, which was great.
Crazy.
So here's the list if you're curious. So Ryan Suckup, 69 games. That was the most. Butker and Cairo Santos each had 46 games. Lawrence Tynes, 30. And then kind of that range we were talking about. There's Dave Rayner, Connor Barth, Nick Novak, John Carney, and Justin Medlock. Yep.
How about that? I still want to take.
Yep.
I still want to take Cairo though to Brazil, right? I know he's a Bear, but it's like, can we sign him just to put him on the plane to go? Because you remember how crazy fans were on the road. There would always be like 30 or 40 Brazilian NFL fans that would show up everywhere we went for Cairo.
And they would be, I mean, and they had. We'd go to the first time we heard it was I think in Oakland. The guys like Carlos. And so I'm like kind of looking around on I'm like, he's got to be talking to Cairo, right? He's got, like, I'm looking around like there's no other Carlos. So and so I'm like, dude, just wave to him. He's fanning you. Like he's going to buy your jersey and like, he loves you. Just sign something or like wave, throw him a ball. I threw balls all kind. I'm sure the organization could charge me for how many balls I would like give to people just so that sometimes they wouldn't yell at me anymore. So this guy, like, finally halfway through the third quarter, I'm like, dude, you got to talk to him. The offensive linemen are tired. Just talk Carlos. Talk to him. And so Cairo looks up and he's like, hey, buddy. He does, hey, buddy, like that. And the guy goes, hey, if this kicking thing doesn't work out, you could be a horse jockey. and I remember Cairo was like, thank you.
Yeah, just set him up.
I really needed that. Bong. So, and it kind of followed us for a few weeks. You could be a horse jockey.
17 years in the NFL, but 15 with the Chiefs. And I love the fact that you ended the career with Super Bowl 54 championship. But let's be honest, 5 head coaches, 4 general managers, 2-14 seasons. Your ability to survive and to be resilient and to be a pin light in a dark room.
You dealt with all of that too, like we all did in some way. And I think you just kind of, you try to format your game to fit the new regime the best you can. And whatever that meant, like I wanted when Andy Reid and Dave Tobe and Veach and like Donovan was there the year before, they all got there a couple years before they all got there. I wanted to make sure they were like, yeah, he's our guy. Because you hear guys like, well, he's not really our fit. He's not guy. And I'd watched that from 05 to through 2012, and I was like, I know that they're looking for something in particular, and I don't want them to look away from that. And so I was just very focused on like staying in that room, raising my family here in the Midwest because Kansas City's the greatest NFL town there is. And I've been in a couple like late in my career, but like I was like, God, this place, I knew it was the best, and then that was affirmation. And so we had, with the Carl Petersons and guys that came in, put very important puzzle pieces together But then when you look at that new regime that came in 2013, it was like the grand master plan of like, hey, we also have drawers that have the edge pieces that like really put this thing together. And so like when I saw that happening quickly in 2013 and how they worked, I was like, I've got to stay in this room because I know where this is leading. You know that too, right? I mean, it's that you felt that like this guy, they're like, oh wait, the edge pieces are in this drawer. So like we're going to border it around and we've got something huge here.
Well, with all that in mind, there's this awesome shot of you after the AFC Championship game against the Titans. The confetti's falling, and you're tearing up on the field.
Oh, yeah.
Everything you went through, all the adversity to lead to that moment, what was that night like for you?
It was a whole, like, that for me was more emotional than the Super Bowl because just the Lamar Hunt trophy, and I mean, I was literally holding some of their kids on the sidelines as a younger player, and then to see them like celebrating and knowing that we lost, Lamar in 2006, it just came to a head. Really, I just didn't expect that. I thought it was gonna be one of those things like, oh, finally, it's not New England anymore. Thank God we punched our ticket to the Super Bowl. But it was way more emotional because I'd sit in the stadium across the street and watch Royals fans just dog it out, and then finally win a championship, and it was finally our turn. And so it was just super emotional because most of the time as a player, you don't, at least for the golfer of the team, like weird like golfers, is you don't want to look up in the stands. You want to be distracted. And so it was the moment I looked up and you realize, holy crap, we did it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to talk through it, but yeah, that was just so amazing. And now it's common, like that's just what we're going to drive in for a win at Arrowhead. Like it just happens. Like,
but it's not normal,
No, yeah.
And you helped lay the foundation for what we have
question.
now. You did.
No question. Those of you who are listening and not watching, we are wearing 2 jerseys. And this, Defending the Kingdom, is entitled Deuces are Wild, out of respect to this young man. But we know this. The deuce will always be in our heart. Congratulations, brother, on a great run.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Dustin Colquitt. Wow. I got emotional to do that with him. It was walking back in time with him through those difficult times, but then getting the payoff. But to see how much it meant to him, it still means to him. He's talking about going down 150 and making the turn of like, I don't work there anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stuff that's it's really, really something that I think the fans, when you get somebody who's dug the roots as deep as he has dug them, that I think fans can gloss over just how much it meant and means to him.
It's extremely relatable. I think the reality is in professional sports that a lot of times players come and go, and they had a great experience in a place, but it's not their home. It was a stop in their journey. They move on, and that's fine. That happens a lot. It's totally fine. There are people, though, like Dustin Colquitt, where this is a lot more than just a stop in his journey. This was a lot more than a job. And, you and I were talking about it earlier today that it kind of is like how you and I feel about this team or how any fan out there feels about this team. He loves this place. He loves it. And being here every day, winning with this team was something that meant more to him than just a job, just a stop in his journey, just a team that he played on. It was his team. He was a Chief, and the Chiefs were winning when he was here, and he got to be a part of that. Not just on the field, but in the locker room, in the community, all that stuff. And to see how much it meant to him really kind of was profound, I think. And we talked for a while after the interview was over, too. You could just tell it means a lot. And I'm so glad the organization did this for him today because, it's difficult where you're doing one thing your whole life, and then one day you're not doing it anymore. And that's hard. And I think it's so cool that the organization invited him here today, gave him a whole day, got to go out to practice, got to see all the guys, got to see Coach Reed, Coach Tobe, everybody, got to do a press conference. Like, that's awesome. So I'm just glad he had his day because clearly it means a lot to him. Not just all the stuff today, but his time here means a lot to him. And it was important to recognize and to celebrate that.
And you talk about doing something for 15 years, you don't get to do it anymore. But when you put every fiber of your body into it,
yeah,
and you experience the highest of highs, which he did, and the lowest of lows, which he did, that it just, again, puts it all in perspective. One thing I did not mention, I wish I would have, was Team Smile. He started something here in Kansas City and really made it grow in providing dental care for kids who would not have it any other way. And we think about medical care, we think about books, and we think about what Operation Breakthrough does. But it's really interesting because he brought dentistry and health. We all know what it means to our health of our teeth to our entire body. But he took that to a whole nother level. And he and Christia, their 5 kids, are wonderful. His faith is so real, it's so good. But Team Smile is another just a great example of how Dustin has affected so many lives outside of football.
Yeah, like stuff like going to the dentist. We take that for granted. Like, it's like, I have to go to the dentist. But for a young kid whose parents or guardians can't afford to send them to the dentist, and let's say that they just don't have a great situation going on with their teeth or with their oral health, like, not only is it a health thing, it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
And when you're that age, that's super important. And it's just so cool what Dustin did. Like, he was literally changing lives, like changing young lives. And Team Smile was the most incredible thing while he was here. It was always fun to go over to the stadium when they'd have their huge Team Smile, like free dental care, like extravaganza. And you just have like busloads of kids coming in that otherwise wouldn't have dental care. And they get it all done that day at Arrowhead. Like, that's so cool. I used to love going over to that event. Like, he'd bring his teammates over. It was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, listen, we could talk forever about this guy. Great player, great guy, and he was great in the community. He didn't waste the platform that he had. He made this place better than he found it.
We're going to close this way, just some overall feelings of OTAs, Phase 3, Week 2, Days 1, 2, and 3. Week 2.
There we go.
But if we're Deucers or Wild, I would say that in Team Smile would be worth smiling so far. Overall, in watching this 2 weeks, I just feel like the Chiefs are ahead of schedule. I think they're ahead of schedule in all 3 phases of where we thought they would be. We mentioned this last week, but the fact that the rookies, to me, are ahead of schedule. But it's been verified by the coaching staff because we see it, but are we seeing what they're seeing? And they always kind of bring me down a little bit as far as, like, just keep tempering your expectations. But they're seeing it too, and there's some excitement. But even in this week, we have seen some things that I thought is another step forward. We saw today Elijah Mitchell, the former San Francisco running back, show a burst. We've seen Rashad Smith show a burst. But defensively is where I see the excitement in me, in that Steve Spagnuolo now is going to be able to do a lot of different things. There's just a lot of versatility on this defense at all 3 levels.
Yeah, I saw Noel Williams jump a route and pick off a pass in team drills today. I think just adding him and adding Christian Fulton from the Chargers, there is so much more depth at corner now. And you're right with the versatility. You can do so many things with Trent McDuffie now. Like, you don't have to necessarily pigeonhole Trent McDuffie into a certain role. He can do a whole bunch of stuff as your best defender in the secondary. And, yeah, just adding those players does a lot. Noel Williams, I mean, the coaches have said his head's kind of spinning right now. He still has a long way to go, but you can see it with him, which is exciting. And speaking of ahead of schedule, 2 individual things that have me fired up is that Josh Simmons did team drills today. He was out there doing team stuff.
And let's back up. Did you think on June the 4th, the day that we drafted him, that he would be in team drills? Now, he didn't go 50 snaps. They weren't in pads. But he lined up with the ones when they started teamwork. Nowhere. I would have lost $100, 5 times over, $500. I would have bet against it every time that on June the 4th, patellar tendon injury rehab, that he would be out there in that circumstance.
I think all of us assumed, those of us not with the medical reports, that is, like you and I, when we saw Josh Simmons get drafted, I think a fair assumption and something that we were comfortable with was, this is kind of maybe a redshirt year for him, but hey, 2026, really fired up for what he can do. Well, if you're doing team stuff in early June, I think this is not going to be a redshirt year for Josh Simmons. Coach Reed has talked about how he's going to be available for training camp, to be like full go for training camp. And while they're kind of easing him into this stuff, like it's not like you said, they're not wearing pads right now. It's not like they were doing long drive drill or anything today, but still working him in with team drills in early June is great news. Like that's a great sign. Another one is Rashee Rice is doing just about everything out there, which is amazing because I think sometimes we assume like these guys are video game characters and okay, you have this surgery, this time frame, you'll be good to go just the same. It's difficult with like knee reconstructions. You never really know. But Rashee looks explosive. He looks fast. He looks like he did last year around this time. That's what Coach Nagy was talking about after practice today. So when you have two players that were relative question marks going into training camp, like where is Rashee Rice in his rehab? Where is Josh Simmons? Well, at least watching OTAs, that's two big positives for me is that they are out there competing, and that's all you could hope for this time of year.
The other thing that I've noticed in these 2 weeks is putting more on the plate of a second-year, third-year, and a fourth-year player and basically like following a academic sequence and seeing how they handle it. And we have seen that from year one to year two. Jaden Hicks comes to mind in this regard. But you also look at Leo Chanel. So going into his, third year, then fourth year actually for him. So guys going into the fourth year, but putting more on their plate, giving them more responsibility, seeing what they can do, and on both sides of the ball. The other thing is Xavier Worthy. Put more on his plate. There's more routes. You're going to line up differently. You're going to have these looks that are different. And one thing I've noticed about Worthy so far is he's brought his lunch pail to work every day. They're running his legs off.
Getting a lot of cardio.
And so, but he's handling it. And he's working. And there's no dog in the route. And I don't mean DAWG the route. It's more like, being low-key in it. But there's just they test. They're always testing, pushing, testing. Mike Caliendo, right? Push. What can he handle? Give him more stuff to do. Hunter Norzed, C.J. Hansen, Kingsley Suamatia. More and more and more. How much more can you take? How much more can you handle? How you perform? And that's the experimental stage. This goes back to the OEI a couple of DTKs ago. Well, we're serious about it because we see it that push, experiment, push. What can you handle? What can we get to so that when you get to camp and you get into the games, we know that you can pretty much have a confidence in handling these 15 things.
Absolutely. And I know we already talked about Trent McDuffie, but this thought just popped into my head as well that the 2 open days of Chiefs OTA practices so far, one constant between the two is Trent McDuffie had an interception. And if you think about Trent waited forever to get his first interception. We all knew he was one of the best corners in the NFL, just didn't have that interception yet. Finally got that monkey off his back last year, but he's just always around the ball so far watching practice. The one today was a deflection, just landed right in his arms. The one last week was more of a pure interception, but still, he's just been around the football. And we talk about how great Trent is. I think Trent's in store for like a monster year, just based on watching him in practice. And it's crazy. He's a veteran now. Like he's like a leader, but same kind of deal. Like the more you can do. One rookie I wanted to mention from today as well, who maybe made the play of the day, was Jake Brenningstool.
Yep.
Tight end out of Clemson, undrafted free agent. He's a player to watch in training camp in the preseason because he's just really impressed me so far. Today during team drills, again, not a lot of contact, keep that in mind, but still, as much as there can be, really tight coverage on him up the seam, and he climbed the ladder, went up, and got a perfect pass, full extension, deep down the field earlier today, and just a great play, the kind of play that makes you scribble something down, right? And I think sometimes there's a misconception with these practices. I keep saying there's no hitting and all that. It's not easy. It's not as simple as they're in shorts just kind of jogging, running around. Like the defenders are competing because they want to make the team too. So it's difficult. It's hard. And Brenningstool just kind of looks the part. So he's a player that I'm hoping to see him kind of stack these practices over the course of the summer. But certainly a guy to watch.
Kind of a Dalton Schultze, Dalton Kincaid kind of looking guy.
Kind of like a leaner, like
very lean.
He's not the prototypical like lumbering kind of tight end. He's an athlete. He's like a big wide receiver. But there's a lot of those guys in the league now, so could be a player to watch.
Great body control in him. We saw that play down the seam. Down the rails was that way too. Two guys close this way. Two defensive. Chris Jones is working. He's working.
Yeah.
He's working.
He looks awesome too.
And then the other one who might be, in my opinion, the MVP of OTA so far is George Karlaftis.
Oh yeah.
It's every day. It's almost every snap he's out there of every day. Like if he stays healthy, I just don't want to get ahead of myself. He is better. George Karlaftis is better. He's looks more powerful, quicker. He's got more moves in the tool bag, and I don't know. He could have a big year.
Not to make an obvious Purdue connection, but like he just reminds me of like a freight train right now. Like around the edge.
Boiler up.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's fast, he's quick, but he's powerful. You don't have like sacks in these practices, but when the defender gets close enough, the coaches will just blow their whistle. There's been some of those with George Karlaftis, and it's not necessarily because the offensive line was struggling. It's because George Karlaftis was that good on that rep. So yeah, I think George is in store for a big year as well. It's cool. We talk about how transformative the 2022 draft class was, and how that class helped us get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, all that. We're still talking about those guys improving. Like we've talked about multiple of those guys like Leo, George, Trent, improving going into their fourth year as pros. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be wild to think they could be even better. But, hey, this DTK is about wild anyway. Deuces are wild, right? Another big shout-out to Dustin Colquitt. Thank you, brother, for 15 incredible years as an unforgettable Chiefs Kingdom rep.